Hi there, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Cloud-Based Mayhem. I have been furiously building away here in Haley, Idaho, just outside of Sun Valley, and have not been flying since Columbia, so I'm getting the itch really bad. Spring has been terrible weather here in the northern Rockies. I've seen some good flights go down in Europe on occasion, but man, we are fighting it here, so I hope you're all having better luck than we are. It's been we actually just got 16 inches of snow as we get here to June 1st, the last couple days up in the mountains. So it's been wet and cold and hard building, but getting there, and excited to have these conversations, and it keeps me excited about flying, and I hope it does for you as well. My guest today is Andy Baumelt, Swiss pilot who reached out and said the magic words, which were, hey, I'm not somebody you normally talk to because I'm not that good, and I'm firmly in the grips of intermediate syndrome, and just got into it in 2016, had a crash in 2017 after doing some dumb stuff, and I said, hey, I've been promising my listeners that I would do more shows with just the folks out there doing their thing, and so there's a lot of learning here, and we had a lot of fun with this talk. This took place months ago, so I'm sorry I don't exactly remember all the various things we talked about, but I do remember having some good laughs and talking to Andy about future Volbiv adventures that he hopes to do, and some of the funny things, the mistakes he's made along the way that I think are pretty instructive. So I don't have any housekeeping. I hope you're all getting some good airtime and having fun, and thanks for listening. Enjoy this show with Andy Baumelt. Andy, welcome to the Mayhem. I wish it was under a little better circumstances. I understand you're in a COVID quarantine. How you feeling?
Yeah, hey Gavin, thanks for having me. I'm starting getting better from my COVID infection. Yes, but it's been tough, but it's better.
Yeah. Bummer. I've been through that myself. It wiped me out. It was a little over a year ago, and wiped me out for a few days. But it's now we got to worry about getting it again, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But I hope not, to be honest. So
Yeah.
3 vaccines and one infection should be enough.
Yes, I know. Yeah, I think we're all getting a little tired of this for sure. But well, let's talk about more fun things. I think the world's had enough COVID. So uh, you reached out to me, and we've got you on the show. You're a little different than our normal guests. It sounds like you're just getting started in the whole game. Do I understand correctly? You started flying in 2016.
Yeah, that's correct. I started flying 2016. To be honest, I didn't fly much in the beginning, and now 2019, I had my first really short XC flight, and I realized how cool this is and how much I loved it. So
Oh,
it really got me hooked, and I started flying more and more, and yeah, at one point I got to the idea to make a project, which we will talk later on, I guess. And yeah, that's why I tried to reach you, and I thought that it might be interesting for the people as well to hear from someone who's not very experienced, who's not a top pilot, to hear about his thoughts, about his progression, and what he's doing. Yeah.
yeah, and where are you based? And yeah, absolutely, I think that's where most of the pilots lie. So I've got to do this from time to time. We always get a lot of great comments when I have folks on the show that are going through what you're going through and going through what we all go through at some point. So, but where are you based?
I'm south of Zurich in Switzerland, and
Okay.
it's already in the canton of St. Gallen. You passed my place in this year's X Alps. It's
Yeah.
very close to Sentis, to the turn point.
Yeah, that's a stunning part of the world. I was just starting to pick up steam when I was going through. I had a really bad start to the race, but it was we had a neat I had a neat day with Cody there in Santis, and when I left there, made some pretty good distance towards the Valency, and
Yeah.
Man, I had a landing up at the pass up there. We the cloud base was a little bit below the pass. We both tried to squeak through, and neither one of us made it. But he landed right on the pass, which was really nice. And I had to stick it into this. It was a kind of an uphill helipad
Oh,
spot. It was. I wish I would have had it on video. It was really dynamic. I had to kind of wing over and then come down in through the trees and do an uphill kind
oh.
of downwind landing. It was pretty exciting. But yeah, I have fond memories of that place.
Yeah, it's a really good place to live. I mean, I have 3 takeoffs in 15 minutes ride with the car,
Wow.
and yeah, so it's perfect for me.
Wow. Let's talk about you, you said some funny things. I was just reviewing it before we got on the phone here that you made some mistakes early on that of course 2020 hindsight they must be kind of oh what was I
Absolutely.
thinking? But go through some of that. You had a pretty bad accident real early on. Talk about what happened.
Yeah, so I made my license in 2016, and I flew with my school glider in for 1 more year. And I
Mhm.
thought it would be good to change for a B glider at some point in 2017. And so I started testing gliders. And because I already thought, like, I'm a badass, I know how to pull in big ears, I know everything about paragliding. So yeah, I don't know what I thought, to be honest, but I had no fear. So I just pulled in big ears and tried to collapse the wing. And with one wing that I tested, I didn't know that pulling in big ears can make a deep stall in the wing. And that's what happened because I didn't pull the accelerator, the speed bar. So what happened? I got in a deep stall. I've never been there before. I haven't done any SIVs. And what happened? I just lost control over the glider. And I didn't know what to do. And so I just watched the glider reacting, and it did something, and suddenly it was below me, next to me, and so at one point I realized, okay, I don't have much height anymore, so I pulled out the reserve, which opened really quick, and I was happy about that. And then I realized, like, damn, it's going really fast down, and I didn't know why it should be like this or not because I've never experienced it before. And I went down, and there was a huge forest, and I thought, oh, cool, I will land in a tree. That shouldn't be too bad. But I had bad luck. There was a small piece where there was no trees, and of course, I landed there in a really flat area, and I broke two of my vertebrae in my back, and
Mm.
that's when I realized, okay, this was not too clever what I did here. And yeah, there was my first, and so far I have to knock on wood, my first and last accident, which made me realize many things. To be honest, I tried to analyze that, and it made me realize many things. Yeah.
Let's talk about the many things. Be specific. I
So
mean, one thing that I don't understand from this is why your wing went into a deep stall going into big ears. Did you pull it incorrectly? Did you pull too much? Do you know?
now, to be honest, a few years later, there was a safety warning for this specific glider that it can go into deep stall by pulling it in big ears. But as I learned later in SIV courses, um, any glider can do that in certain circumstances. If you just pull in big ears with no speed bar, then if you it can change the angle of attack so that you can go into a deep stall. So always, if you pull in big ears, just make it with a speed bar. That's what I've learned later on, and I didn't know that, to be honest, by then.
Hmm.
So that's of course one lesson, one point in the lessons learned.
Interesting. Yeah, because I don't want the listener to be afraid of using big ears. That's it's
Absolutely.
not something you really use too much as you get better and better. It's definitely more of a lower hours, but very useful maneuver. And of course, speed bar is a really important part of that equation. But
I think most of the gliders nowadays, they don't go into a deep star as I understand it. And as I
yeah,
say, I'm not a professional, but since I had this accident, I went to an SIV course and talked a lot to this SIV instructor, and he would tell me that some gliders can do that. So I think for me, it's really important to know that and to be aware of that, and just if for future. I nowadays I still use big ears and I like them again, but I know that I always will use the speed bar with it, and then you don't risk.
And how are you doing it? Are you getting on speed and then pulling ears? Because
No,
I've always heard it's the other way around.
exactly. You should just pull in the big ears because of the shark nose. Apparently, it's better to pull
Yep.
in the big ears without the speed bar, and then push the speed bar once they're in.
Yeah, of course. So interesting. So you okay, so let's go back to the incident. So you're in deep stall. You did the right thing. You weren't really sure what was going on, so you threw
Yeah,
your reserve, but then you discovered another problem.
yeah, that's you're saying it. Um, Unfortunately, I didn't check my gear at all. I just got it from my teacher back then, and I didn't really think about the reserve. It was just this red handle and at the seat which you can pull, but I'd never thought about what's in there. And I even it was 2016 that I got the reserve. It was a round reserve, and I really think nowadays there shouldn't be any round reserves anymore. But that's my opinion. And it was way too small, the reserve. So it was for 105 kilos, and I weighed my takeoff weight was 120 kilos. So
Oh, so you were coming down
I
fast.
was coming down by far too fast, and that's one point. I never thought about the reserve, and later on as well, I realized okay, you should have reserves that are bigger than what your takeoff weight is actually, because the takeoff weight is given at the sea level. So if it's made for 100 kilo, the reserve, it's thought for 100 kilo at sea level. But once you're in the mountains, because the air density is much lower, you must have a bigger reserve there than for 100 kilos. So you
Sure.
need 20% extra, and not just less than what I had.
Yeah, this is something that I think is really commonly screwed up across the spectrum. Is especially these days with hike and fly becoming such a big thing and lightweight gear and everybody trying to shave grams and ounces. That's an area that I really don't think. And I say this doing the same thing in the X Alps. We're all flying the lightest stuff possible. Most of us are using rounds, and I totally agree with you. Now they have these lightweight squares that are most of us have switched over to, if not all, which is great. But you know, it's one of these things where I think X Alps pilots know the risks they're taking and they're pretty methodical about it. But I think it's also something that the general flying public often screws up. That's not a place to shave weight. If you definitely want a glider that's above your your all-in weight. If you're 110, you want to be on a reserve that's at least rated for 125, or 120 at least. And so I think that's, you want to be coming down slow. I would imagine you were probably coming down at 6 meters or maybe even more on an undersized reserve, and that's definitely a speed that you can do a lot of damage.
Absolutely, and yeah, it was fast. I have to admit, but yeah, that's one more point that I learned. It was not even, what you said, you ex-alpha pilots, you know what you're doing, and you know that you have a reserve that is really too small. So you know the risk that you're going in, but I didn't know anything about it, to be honest. It was not that I took the risk on purpose, because I just didn't know it.
I don't want to throw your instructor under the bus here, but this sounds like quite an oversight. Yeah, I'm surprised that you were sold that gear. That seems like a pretty obvious
Yeah,
misstep.
probably they just didn't know my weight, my takeoff weight, to be honest. And yeah,
Yeah, but they should.
They should.
I
I
don't know
know.
if you need to give them that much forgiveness,
I
but
know.
Well, that's good to know. I think of those kind of mistakes not happening as much in Switzerland. I feel like the instructor level is really high, and the schools are really good and thorough, and the education there is quite a bit more strict and methodical than what we have here. So I'm surprised that you kind of slipped through the cracks there.
Yeah, yeah. Was bad luck, but in the end, it
Mm.
all led to a really good thing that I did my first SIV, and so this is where the things changed, I think.
And how was your first SIV coming out of the accident? Was there a lot of fear going into it?
Shall I be honest? I
Yes, of
think
course.
I slept 2 or 3 hours the night before my first SIV. I was so nervous. I just couldn't sleep. I really thought like, okay, this what am I doing here? I was so nervous, and but I my husband was the first person to tell me like, okay, you have to continue flying. This is such an important part in your life. I will not let you stop flying. So
Ah,
I thought I
does
would.
he fly too?
No, he doesn't. He doesn't.
Okay. Hmm.
And I thought I will quit, to be honest. But he said, no, I must not stop. So I thought, okay, if I continue, the only good way to continue is just to be a safer pilot, a better pilot, and do a lot of SIVs. So if I continue flying, I have to do at least one SIV a year. That's what I wanted for me, to
Hmm.
be a safe pilot.
I'm curious, why was he so motivated that you fly? That seems like maybe some extraneous pressure that he just saw that it lit you up, or what?
Yeah, absolutely. He knew how much this meant to me, or it still means to me, and he's like, he wants me to be a happy and good person, and flying makes me a happy and good person, and he sees that, um and that's why he wants me to continue flying.
Well, what was the impetus to get into flying? What was how'd you start?
Actually, I've always wanted to fly. I think most of the people say that, but I never got there to make the course. And we went to the Pride Festival in Zurich, and there was a stand where they were making like advertisements for a flying school. So I went there and asked them for informations and instructions, and did my first training day with them, and,
Hmm.
and that's how I started.
Wow, cool. And was it love at first sight, or you just
With my
hooked from the beginning?
first takeoff, I was addicted. Yeah, absolutely. I just couldn't stop anymore. It was just, yeah,
I got away from our what we were talking about there in terms of when you went back to the mistake, the things you learned. There's more than the reserve and the wing choice. I believe that it's kind of nice to forensically go back through these accidents. I've learned that from airplane pilots. When they have an accident, which is thankfully much more rare than in free flight. They really go back to they call it threat and error management, but they go back to it's usually a series of things that kind of went
absolutely.
wrong. But I'd love to just hear more of the takeaways and how it changed. It sounds kind of the epitome of intermediate syndrome. You were way overconfident and way under hours.
Yeah, this is probably the first let's call it threat, the confidence. And just as I said, I really thought I have it, and I know how I fly, and how wings fly, and I know everything about it. And this gave me just too much confidence. I never thought about accidents, to be honest. I just thought like, oh, come on, these things fly, and why should I be scared? And people were they looked at me when I pulled like collapses and wings that I don't know. They were like, "You are like really courageous," and this wouldn't make me stop. I was like, "Oh, it's okay. I'm
Mm.
cool with it. They fly these wings, no worries." And was a bit stupid if I think back at it, but it's yeah. I think this was the first real big threat. Then, of course, flying a wing that you don't know. It was a new wing, so nobody really had any experiences with it. I wouldn't ask any experienced pilots about the wing. I think this is one of the takeoffs for me as well, because
Hmm.
after that I went to the SIV course and asked after some SIV courses, I asked my instructor, okay, what wing do you think could fit me? What wing shall I choose as next wing? And I think this will be much more clever than just go and pick any wing and think, okay, this wing will be okay. so so I think this is a takeaway as well for me. Ask more experienced pilots um, if they have a wing suggestion for your flying. What people that know how you fly, experienced pilots that can tell you, okay, I think this should be the next wing for you. This is a good choice for you. So
Hmm.
this is one of the takeaways as well.
Yeah. And you said your email. I don't know if you were serious about this or not, but you chose the wing because of the colors.
It's
is,
one
that,
of
is that true?
it's so stupid, right? It's so stupid, but this is this was one of the criterias, right? It's so stupid, and this is just because I'm honest. And in retrospective, I have to say it's probably the most stupid thing that I could have done. But the wing looked really nice. I love the colors, so yeah. Why should I try any other wings?
That's I think the manufacturers that are listening to this will their ears will be perking up. Going, we need to be making wings that are really beautiful and colorful and will make more sales. That's pretty funny. I've never actually even thought about that.
It's healthier not to think about it.
Yeah, maybe not. It sounds like it. So coming out of this accident and sounds like a little bit of a wake up and looking in the mirror type thing, which we all need from time to time. We've all got egos. How has your approach changed since?
So as I said, I did my first SIV, and I met Daniel Loritz. I don't know if some might know him. He creates reserves, and he's a really famous SIV instructor in Switzerland, and probably one of the most experienced pilots in Switzerland as well. And I became friends with him through these SIV courses and learned a lot about flying, about the technical parts of flying, and I think this was a huge step for me because I started to realize that I know nothing about paragliding and that I'm really a beginner, and then it will take me years to become better, and not just overnight, and not with one SIV a year as I thought I will. And yeah, it takes many SIVs. It takes a lot of time above the water, and to become a safer and better pilot.
You talked about, I kind of skipped over this, but you talked about being really scared and not getting any sleep before that
Yeah,
first one.
yeah.
How was it then? You show up that first day and you get a little bit of theory and then get out over the water. How did it pretty quickly? Did you pretty quickly settle into it and feel reasonable about what you were doing, or was it just scary all week?
Yeah, it was. I think I read they had he makes this manuscript with all the maneuvers, and I think I've read this manuscript 10 times before I even went there. And then this week was it was a difficult week for me because I was not relaxed at all until the end. I did my first full stall even in this 1 week, and I was just scared, to be honest. And
Hmm.
but it was really important for me to do that because I knew I stalled the glider, and so I just wanted to stall the glider again, just to have the feeling again. Um, and this was really important, and I was very scared of it. But once I did that, I realized, okay, I think it's something that you can work with. It's something that you can work on it to lose the fear, and then you have just to become, yeah, not better, but repeat it more often, and then you will lose the fear eventually. And that's something I realized there. And so it was a scary week for me, but it was a very good week for me as well, because I realized, okay, I can work on it. It's scary, but I can work on it. I still have a lot of respect, but I'm not shaking anymore, and I'm not scared of these maneuvers anymore. So I think this is very good.
And what has that done for your headspace when it just comes to XC and flying? I know you've got some bivy aspirations and
So I think I'm less scared for the technical parts. Let's put it this way. When I go flying, I don't think like, okay, I got this always, but most of the time I feel like very confident in my wing, because I've I've this let's say I've destroyed the wing above the water, and I know what situations I can capture, or what I can save and what not.
hmm,
And and this makes me like more confident when I go flying. But I don't think it's overconfident. I don't think that I have to fly into really bad lee situations, or stupidly into everything, because I know it's still a dangerous sport. But I feel much safer with the wing, because I know what I can resolve and what not.
I'm curious, maybe tell me what your instructors sorry, tell me his
Or
name again. I know I've heard it a
Daniel
million times.
Daniel
Daniel
Loritz, yes.
Lawrence, yeah, of course. Uh, quite a few SIV instructors that I've had on the show have said that, there's for some people it's not a good thing. If you're going in really scared, it could just make you more scared. And that's not very good for someone's mind and headspace and ability. You're not necessarily educating, you're just freaking people out. Whereas what they want to see is there's always going to be fear, but what they want to see is that you're really excited, that you really want to do it, you really want to push through the fear. It sounds like maybe that first one you were really scared. Do you feel like that would you advise someone in your same situation to go do their first SAV regardless, or maybe not?
Really difficult. I think it's a very individual choice. I know myself, and I'm easily scared of things, to be honest. Even if the first part didn't sound like that, but I'm easily scared of something, and I know I've done many things before, like climbing. I was scared of height. I was really scared of heights, so I went to a climbing course. I thought, okay, how can I change this fear of height? So let's go climbing.
Mm,
And I was really scared of climbing in the beginning, but I knew that if I overcome this fear, I will feel comfortable, and I will feel more comfortable in my daily situations as well. I can walk over bridges, I can go to tall buildings, and so it's worth to overcome this fear. I knew that. So even in paragliding, I knew that overcoming this fear will lead to something better.
mm,
So I knew the worth of it. So for me, it was good how I did it, but I don't think it's good for everyone. I think you have to have a little bit of rational view as well. It's not just the fear. If I had only the fear with not the rational expectation behind it, then I think it might be a bit stupid to do that. But I always knew why I'm doing this. So it was the emotional part, the fear, but the rational part as well, telling me, okay, you have to overcome this fear, and then you will become a better pilot, and you will be less afraid in everyday flying.
Tell me about where you're at now with you mentioned you did a kind of a cool bivy effort this it sounds like this last summer,
Yeah,
and you had some cool things to say about expectations, just in terms of a lot of people do it and they're kind of setting themselves up for disappointment, and
exactly.
because they set the expectation too high. I liked that. Can you talk about that a little bit?
My first Volbeef I did was 2 or 3 years ago, and I only had 3 days, so I went from the Niesen, you know it, in Bernese Overland,
Yeah.
and the day was really good, and people flew like far distances, and I just bummed out, and so the next 2 days I was just hiking and flying and doing sled rides, and this was my first Val Biv, and I was like, it was not a good experience because I felt like, oh damn, I should have flown much farther, and this is so stupid. I mean, this was my first Val Biv, and I should have enjoyed it from the beginning to the end because it was such a beautiful experience. I mean, I went with
Hmm.
my glider and the tent, and just camped in out in nowhere, and I could hike up these mountains that I have never flown before. It was such a good experience. It was beautiful. I had the most beautiful pictures made, and most beautiful experience. But meanwhile, I was like a little bit, let's say, embarrassed because I just didn't
Hmm.
do the XC distance that I should have done. And this, I realized it in this first Volviv how stupid this is. Come on, I'm not like you. I don't have to earn my money with that. I don't have to show anyone what I'm capable of, and I'm just a tourist, to be honest, in paragliding. I'm a paragliding tourist, and my goal is just to enjoy the moments and enjoy the flying. And and this doesn't matter if I fly 100K or if I fly just 1K. It doesn't change anything about it, and I should be aware of that if ever I do this again. And so this year, with a friend of mine, we went to Italy and did a 4-day Volviv, and we flew. Of course, we flew much farther, but we had no intentions. We just thought, okay, come on, let's fly the day, and let's see how far we get. And it was probably the 4 most beautiful days in my life. It was just an epic trip that we did. It was so beautiful, and we had no pressure. We had no goals. We just wanted to fly and enjoy our 4 days, and this was amazing.
That's a pretty nice. You went. You learned that lesson really quick. From the first one to the second one.
Yeah,
Was Were you thinking along those lines during the first one, or was it afterwards? And you got back to Zurich and sat down on your couch and went, "What the hell?
yeah, it
Why
was.
did I have that approach?"
Yeah, it was afterwards. It was afterwards,
It was
and
afterwards.
yeah, absolutely. I didn't realize it then. I really thought like, during this first Wellbeef, I really thought, oh come on, what are you doing? Come on, this can't be true. You must be better. And but after these 3 days, I did for myself like a short recapture of this Wellbeef, and I realized, come on, how stupid are you? This this is just stupid what you're doing here, and that's when I realized, okay, if ever you do this again, then just enjoy it, and go from day to day, and don't make yourself any pressure.
Interesting. It's you figured it out faster than many, I think. The 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 beautiful thing to me about Volbiv, in many ways, Alaska physically was harder than the X Alps, and the X Alps is pretty tough. But the beautiful thing is you're not in a race. You're. I didn't have any desire to ever. I mean, I wanted to get there. That's a big driver is to finish it, but I didn't care how fast we did it.
Yeah,
It was. I think that's really important
yeah,
to take your time. We don't have much time these days in our lives, and so you've set aside these whatever days you've got for this adventure, and I don't know. I think it's better to you've got the right approach there for sure.
yeah, yeah, definitely, and it makes just more fun, right? And what
Yeah.
if I want to be in a competition? I go to a competition, and if I want to enjoy my time with Volviv, then I want to enjoy my time and not compete.
Okay, maybe tougher subject, but not one I want to skimp on. You live in quite a conservative country, and as I do in many ways, especially religiously. You're a gay man, obviously,
Yes.
and I'd love to hear if you've experienced much, if any, discrimination in this sport, and how that is that has that been tough to negotiate or to navigate, I guess is the better word.
No, to be honest, I've never experienced any difficult situations with being gay, either in paragliding or in my private life. I I
Wow.
think I'm a really lucky guy, and I've never experienced any problems with that. But of course, many of my friends they have, and some of them had really big problems, and either with their families or with people attacking them, and so yeah, I know that there is problems, and there is problems even in let's call it civilized countries like US or Switzerland, and yeah, this that's one of the reasons that made me make this project that I want to do next year.
And what is that?
I will do 2 weeks Wellbiv, and with no goals, with no performance goals, and in just 2 weeks Wellbiv, that I want that people can watch it. I made a web page for this as well, and I especially want to make aware on any kinds of discrimination. Let it be for sexuality, like being gay, or for your gender, like especially what I still don't understand in Switzerland, women even still earn less than men do, and yeah, or racism as well. So
Hmm.
I want to make aware of any kinds of discrimination, and that's why I started this project.
Cool. And you're working with Amnesty or who?
Yes, it should have been an NGO. And what kind of NGO is against all kinds of discrimination? And that's Amnesty International. So I wrote Amnesty an email if they would want to support me and do this project with me. And they were into it, and they want to support me. And so yeah, this will be with Amnesty International together.
That's great. I mean, it sounds like a great project and a good excuse to go have some fun too.
Absolutely. So that's how it was born, to be honest. Uh, it I always thought that I want to go flying and have fun, of course. But meanwhile, I always thought I should change a little bit in this world. I'm usually not the guy who goes out and who shows the world what he has or he can do. I'm more like a shy guy, and that's why I'm still a little bit nervous for this interview, to be honest. But I thought every one of us has the possibility to change a little bit in this world, and if any one of us starts to realize, oh, what discrimination is, and yeah, that we should stop discriminating people for things that they cannot change, like their color or their sex. So then everyone can change a little bit in this world, and it will become a better place, I think.
Seems so obvious, doesn't it?
It is.
But I mean, in a sense, just hearing your own experience is makes me really optimistic.
Absolutely.
That's terrific. You're openly gay and you're participating in life and you haven't experienced it in your own situation, at least not to an extent that's been some of the stuff we see in the media and you hear about that's just terrible. So that's great. We're making progress, aren't we?
Absolutely, and I really do believe that we're making progress, and but I still think there is still a lot to do. For example, my husband, he was yeah, he was how shall I say, he was attacked many times for being gay from strangers. His father wouldn't talk to him for 14 years,
Oof.
and stuff like that. So there's still a lot of work to do, but as we see, it can become something really good and beautiful, as it is in my case. So I see both worlds, and I know towards which I want to direct it.
How will you train for this 2-week trip coming up? I know you said you had, there's no goals. You're just going to go out and have a good time. But, I've often said and believe that, Bivvy's kind of the higher end of our sport. Yeah, it requires different skills and there are different approaches and the approach is what makes good calls from bad calls. You can do it very safely within a lot of different skill levels. You don't have to be an X-Ops pilot to have a really good bivy, as you've already learned, obviously. But I'm just wondering, let's talk about that just a little bit, your approach and how you prepare.
Yeah, of course. I thought a lot about top landing and strong wind landings and stuff like that. But to be honest, if it's a really easy top to land, okay, why not? But if it's not really easy, come on, I just go down and land somewhere where it's really easy to land, and then I hike up. I have no stress, so why should I risk my health for just a few meters of hiking? and and this is part of the fun, right? Hiking is part of it, so come on, why should I spare it? Just yeah. So I think this will be very important to keep in mind during the whole 2 weeks, just not to risk anything, and just go land somewhere where it's safe, and don't mess with your health just for a few meters of
Will
hiking.
you do it alone or with a team?
Actually, I started off alone, but then two of my best flying buddies, they said, okay, they would like to join me. So one will join me for the whole 2 weeks, and the other one, he has no well biv gear, but he wants to join us. So he probably will just hike with us and fly with us and sleep in hotels or somewhere in a camping car. And yeah, so we will do it will be a big improvisation probably.
This is the beautiful thing about the Alps, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
you really don't need anything. You
No,
could you could have a really good
yeah,
bivy and just stay and
absolutely.
stay in huts and hotels, and
Absolutely.
you don't have to carry too much and still be really comfortable. So
Exactly.
that's a great place to go have
Absolutely.
fun.
The last
Yeah.
Valbiv we did in the Italian Alps, we had not even a cooker. We had just for 1 day food with us, and that's it. And wherever you land, you just hike 1 hour, and you're in the next hut, and you can get supplies there. You can get food there. You can get a cool beer there. And what else you need?
Tell me about the hut system, and I know it's different in different countries, but one of the things that I have not found personally difficult, I haven't done it, but I've heard that it can be quite tricky, for example, in the Dolomites, because in August, because it's busy, to are huts typically the kind of thing where you've got to book in advance, or can you just top land and show up and get a room?
It in Switzerland, it really depends on what kind of huts you want to visit. The famous ones, they're usually booked in advance, yeah.
Okay.
But normally they would serve you some food and water, and
You can just camp off to the side and you're
absolutely,
fine.
yeah, absolutely. So we will
Yeah.
have our bivy equipment with us, so we're not dependent on the huts, but you will find some food and water there.
And the food, oh, it's incredible at some of these huts. I'm always just so blown away just showing up, and
It,
you've got this menu that's just mouth watering, especially if you're, bivvying and you're done some hiking and you're hungry. It's just, oh, it's so good.
it's too good, isn't it?
It's too good. It's
And
too good. You just don't want to leave.
no,
Uh,
and you don't have to. So
Yes, exactly, and they've got the saunas
yeah.
and, bottomless, really cold beer. Why would you leave?
No, absolutely. And you don't have anything like that in the States, right?
We don't have much of a hut system. There's yurts in Colorado, and we in various places. We've got a few yurts here, but they're not really accessible flying wise. It's just, we don't have the infrastructure. We really don't. It's really tricky. The bivvies that we do are pretty self-supported. You can do a pretty easy way to take out a lot of the logistics, because carrying a lot of weight can be tough. And a pretty easy way out of that is to have a chase vehicle. So if you have a vehicle that can follow along and have a bunch of jugs of water and a bunch of food, then you can get away with carrying less stuff. But it's, we definitely don't have the hut infrastructure that you do. And the other thing we have is, especially in the West, is typically a lot of wind. And so in the high mountain regions of the Rockies and that kind of thing, it's unusual to get a string of days like you have in the Alps. One of the things that's constantly blown me away in the race is, the weather, especially this year, the weather could be atrocious, but you can still fly. There's most days you can still get some, and this is often not recreational flying. I don't think these are days that, you would be out and fly. You just stay in the hut and have a nice hike. But you can still fly a lot. And, we just have a lot of days where flying would be suicidal. You just wouldn't do it at all. It's just too much wind, and that can sustain for days on end. And so bivvying can be harder.
Yeah, sounds like it's no. This is really nice about the Alps. You can just go there and take your camping gear with you and go out, and you have a good time. And yeah, it's really easy, and it's accessible, especially in Switzerland. I mean, you have public transports everywhere. You can land anywhere you want. You will have at least a bus picking you up there, and you'll be back home in an hour or two.
Yeah, it really is remarkable. I love that each country is so different. I always find that fascinating. That uh, the food. Sorry, Switzerland, but compared to Italy,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
but everything, the transport in Switzerland is just, you can land at a bus station or a train station, and you see it from the air. I'm going to go there. I don't know how many times I've done that. And, whereas in Italy, it's a little bit more challenging. It's just fascinating that there's still these huge cultural differences between the countries, because it's so easy to, tag three of them in a day. A big triangle, you're going to be good, which is, I love it. I mean, culturally, it's still very interesting. It's not very homogenous.
That's true, and that's one of the beauties about it, right? You can just within 2 weeks you can see so many different cultures and eat so much different food. So this is one part of
Yeah,
the beauty of it.
it really is. It really is. Andy, thanks for sharing your story. I appreciate it. This has been a lot of fun. I think it is good for us to tap into,
Yeah.
where you're at more often, because that is where, the majority of pilots are. And I wish you the best of luck with your project next summer, and
Thanks so
good luck
much.
with quarantine.
Yeah, thanks.
And but yeah, thanks for sharing your story. I appreciate it. This was fun.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a real honor, and yeah, I really hope that people can take some messages out of this, and to fly more careful, become better pilots, and yeah,
Cool. Thanks, buddy.
thank you.
If you find the Cloud-Based Mayhem valuable, you can support it in a lot of different ways. You can give us a rating on iTunes or Stitcher, or however you get your podcast. That goes a long ways and helps spread the word. You can blog about it on your own website or share it on social media. You can talk about it on the way up to launch with your pilot friends. I know a lot of interesting conversations have happened that way. And of course, you can support us financially. This show does take a lot of time, a lot of editing, a lot of storage and music and all kinds of behind the scenes cost. So if you can support us financially, all we've ever asked for is $1 a show. And you can do that through a one-time donation through PayPal, or you can set up a subscription service that charges you for each show that comes out. We put a new show out every 2 weeks. So for example, if you did $1 a show and every 2 weeks, it'd be about $25 a year. So way cheaper than a magazine subscription, and it makes all of this possible. I do not want to fund this show with advertising or sponsors. We get asked about that pretty frequently, but for a whole bunch of different reasons, which I've said many times on the show, I don't want to do that. I don't like having that stuff at the front of the show. And I also want you to know that these are authentic conversations with real people, and these are just our opinions, but our opinions are not being skewed by sponsors or advertising dollars. I think that's a pretty toxic business model. So I hope you dig that. You can support us. If you go to cloudbasedmayhem.com, you can find the places to support. You can do it through patreon.com/cloudbasedmayhem. If you want a recurring subscription, you can also do that directly through the website. We've tried to make it really easy, and that will give you access to all the bonus material, little video casts that we do, and extra little nuggets that we find in conversations that don't make it into the main show, but we feel like you should hear. We don't put any of that behind a paywall. If you can't afford to support us, then just let me know and I'll set you up with an account. Of course, that'll be lifetime, and hopefully you're being in a position someday to be able to support us. But You'll find all that on the website. All of you who have supported us or even joined our newsletter or bought Cloud-Based Mayhem merchandise, t-shirts or hats or anything, you should be all set up. You should have an account and you should be able to access all that bonus material now. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate your support, and we'll see you on the next show. Thank you.